and welcome to And So Much More. I am sitting here with such an amazing collection of people. I have Rob Way over here on my left, Erin Baird, who is one of our midwives at Centra, and then I have Kathleen Davis, who is actually part of our marketing team here. We are on the same team. Yeah. We get to see each other every day. And so as we've talked about this topic we're going to present today, which is healthy over skinny, we had so many great conversations and ideas, and I was so educated by each of these people that either I've interacted with, and I know Kathleen, you and Erin have a close relationship. And it's just time to destigmatize and educate and have a very in-the-light conversation. So starting with Rob, I want you guys first introduce yourself so that way our listeners can get to know you a little bit.
Well, I'm Rob. I met Cammie through the Radio 434 connection that we have. We've had her on the show a few times.
And it's awesome. I love it.
And it's
it's a good time.
It's pretty good having her there.
Sometimes.
I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, it's terrific. And I think, is that it? Do I need to?
Yeah, you can tell. Well, have you always lived in Lynchburg?
I have not. I've been in and out of this area over the last 20 years or so.
Okay.
Most recently from Alaska, but you know.
That's amazing. You were just in Alaska.
What part?
Yeah, Homer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
If you were on a cruise, you might have docked there temporarily.
I was not on a cruise. Luckily, went to Juneau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I heard it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
very cool.
It is.
But Lynchburg is home now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely got some roots here. And so it's
awesome.
Good.
Erin, I know many of our listeners probably know who you are.
She's very famous.
She is a rock star.
I've been here a long time.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Erin Baird. I am a certified nurse midwife and work for Centra, and I'm also the executive medical director of Women's and Children's Services. I am not from Lynchburg, but I've been here for the last 15 years, and I have 4 kids in the public school system here, and a very supportive stay-at-home husband.
I love that.
So
incredible. I'm Kathleen Davis. I'm on the marketing team here, like Cammie said. I also do some history tours here locally on Saturdays. Let's see, what else?
You are also kind of like a local celebrity.
This is true.
Don't be shy.
This is true. This is the thing.
Yep, that's
this
true.
is the thing.
People
I'm in a band.
You are in a band.
The Chapstick.
Yeah, come check us out sometime.
Yes,
We're on Facebook with an X.
Do. So each person here is going to represent a different experience, a different journey that kind of centers around this idea of prioritizing what is healthy, what is going to be the best choice for your body versus this culture-produced and encouraged idea of thin and skinny and really like what people kind of look at and idolize as the end goal. And so, Kathleen, I want to start with you because you're on my right-hand side and that just feels good. So tell us about your experience. You've shared a little bit about PCOS and just your journey in trying to find the healthiest version of you.
Yeah, I think 2 things that have definitely come up for me in the last year through, this whole process is one, I got sober. Mm-hmm. And I think that has definitely helped, the balancing of all the different things. We'll let Erin please talk about the medical component of this, but I'll just talk anecdotally, and then Erin, as always, just tell me where I went
Clear
wrong.
everything up.
I've got bring the translator. I'll be Kathleen's official translator.
Yes, she was like, 50% of that was not true at all. That is not science. I don't know what that was.
You do what you want.
Now, can I just ask for those playing along at home, what is PCOS?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a common,
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, it's a rather common condition for women that's a metabolic sort of mismatch within the system.
Okay.
All right. So it's a metabolic disease. We usually see it in gynecology with women who are having irregular menstrual cycles or can't conceive.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
But it's a misfiring essentially. And this is, again, I'm sure if there's a doctor on here listening that is going to be like, that's not exactly how that works. But we're talking about this from the standpoint of, the person at home who just wants to know.
Yeah.
It's a metabolic saboteur is what it is. It's a metabolic saboteur. It sabotages weight loss. It sabotages fertility. It sabotages a lot of other things within your body. And on the outside, unless you're a trained professional, you have no idea that somebody has it. It's a little bit like diabetes. It's a kind of a cousin of diabetes.
Okay.
And I think it's so important just, to bounce off what you were saying too, for like healthcare professionals to like acknowledge that in these conversations when they have that, because it can be very frustrating. Like, as a patient to be like, I know this about PCOS. Why are you sitting here saying like, Kathleen, this is the only thing that will solve. I know it's impossible, right?
But I need you to lose weight because that's what's going to make you healthier.
Right.
I know that your body is going to sabotage you through that process and not be supportive at all.
Like, how can we have a different conversation? Like, how can we kind of acknowledge the things and the barriers that, happen within our bodies and have a different conversation? So I'm really excited to be here to kind of talk about my experience with that too, because, in the past, I have had some super like, harder interactions where I just have to be like, I know what PCOS is, like I said. So,
so you mentioned that your health journey started with getting sober, and I love that because I think that so many people don't realize that might be their first step, and it can be a pretty big hurdle sometimes. So, what helped you get over that hurdle to step into this healthy journey?
Yeah, I just wanted to. Like, I hate to say it like that.
I love that.
But I just...
Well, you're not going to do it if you don't.
Exactly.
Right. So it really is it's an internal motivation.
Well,
that one is a decision that has to be internal.
You talk about sabotage. I feel like you self-sabotage if you haven't yet come to that decision where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just thought, like, what are some other ways that I can sort of, like, rig the system? It's me, I'm the system, right? Like, that was something that I felt like I could give away wholeheartedly, and then you don't have like the cheeseburgers for breakfast, which don't get me wrong, still happens.
I love a good cheeseburger for breakfast.
I mean, come on. Sometimes on Saturday morning, McDonald's is just calling for you, and you have to go.
Now I'm
Amen,
hungry.
sister.
Yeah. Like those are things that you cannot help, right? PCOS you can get around, but
Oh, I love it.
We're going to have to set up an
Did that
appointment.
answer your question?
Well, yeah, no, it does. It kind of starts on like what was your first experience when you were were you trying to lose weight specifically, or were you just kind of like, I need to get healthy?
It was about getting healthy, and throughout this whole process, I've probably weighed myself 3 times. Over the last 18 months. And that was just too because I was tracking with other medications. I actually had to with my doctor to kind of like just kind of keep an eye on different things. Yeah. But I just felt like I was so sick of focusing on the weight loss part of it. Like it even just feels cringy to even like re-say that because that never worked. It didn't work once. Like the shame cycles and that type of stuff, like that didn't work. Not drinking was something that I could take back and did sort of have a ripple effect in other ways. But there are other things that will work better for other people in terms of like getting healthy, which is the way that you have to phrase it. And it didn't really work. I didn't see real results until I started thinking about it like that.
Yeah. So Rob, how did your journey start? What was like ground zero for you?
Ground zero is pretty tough.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want just the realist version?
Absolutely. Yeah. And how long ago? Like when did this start?
Yeah. So in 2011, I weighed 555 pounds.
Wow.
I had 3 kids that I couldn't interact with. My now ex-wife, I wasn't much help around the house. Couldn't really do much for myself. I had decided that enough was enough. And I had a plan to kill myself. Keys in hand, walking out the door to a buddy of mine's house to borrow one of his guns.
Wow.
And a nurse from my doctor's office called and said, hey, I know you've been talking to the doctor about your surgery. or trying to get a weight loss surgery. And we've had some hurdles with insurance, but what you don't know is that I've been working kind of in the background for the last 3 or 4 months, and I've got you approved.
That's incredible.
Her name is Emily, and she quite literally saved my life with that call. That was the beginning for me. I had tried, you mentioned having conversations where you're telling people that, I know what PCOS is. For lack of a better word, fat people know more about diet, nutrition, how to lose weight than a lot of doctors. I mean, I knew it all. I had been on and failed so many diets and so many programs, to the point where trying one, I knew I would fail. So
Did it become almost triggering? Just to even start one, you just felt like the hopelessness still? Or did you?
Yeah.
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 I had that conversation with patients. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know you've already tried everything.
Yeah.
I don't eat salads. I hate salads because of all the dieting that I've done over the years. I literally don't want to walk in a gym.
Yeah.
I don't want to have anything to do with that. I'll probably never eat a salad in my life.
Yeah. I hate salads as well.
Yeah, it's a thing. It becomes a thing. It's sad, isn't it?
But I
Wow.
It's true. It's true.
but I eat them.
Good for you.
Because, well, I am really awesome. So
I mean,
You
I
are.
am feeling that.
You are very
so that's
awesome.
why. But it's about it. So anyway, I had my first surgery in 2011.
Okay.
My surgeon broke it up into two. I had what's called a duodenal switch,
Okay.
which you guys in the medical field probably don't know what that is. But it's basically where they turn your stomach into the banana shape.
Oh, yeah.
And then they actually removed about the first 10 to 12 feet of my intestines. Wow. So I ate less and I absorbed even less.
Because the small intestine is where you absorb all the nutrients, and the large intestine is where you absorb all the water. So removing that and then shrinking the stomach means that you don't get credit for a portion of what you eat.
Yeah.
Not that you can eat that much anyway at that point.
Yeah. Wow. So if you're playing and so much more bingo, go ahead and mark the intestines box. And so...
Write that down. We need to do that.
Yeah. So he had to split it up into two surgeries because he wasn't convinced that I would survive the full surgery.
Wow.
So within the first year, I lost over 100 pounds. You mentioned weighing yourself 3 times in 18 months. I weigh myself 3 times or more in a day. I am obsessed with the scale. I always have been. I probably always will be. We talk about healthy versus skinny. I don't think that I will ever be skinny just because of my frame and just because of, honestly, some of the damage that I did to my body being that heavy. But as long as pounds are coming off and as long as clothes are getting big, and you've seen some of my Facebook posts, I have so few clothes now. I was telling my girlfriend the other day, I was wearing a size 40 shorts, and I just bought them. I hadn't even put them on yet, and they were too big.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a journey that has had a lot of different ups and downs, because initially, when you shock your body that much, there were days when I would lose 6-7 pounds in a day. Mm-hmm. And after the first 2 years, that stopped. And so I had to work then. Mm-hmm. And so that's where, hopefully with a surgery like that, you use it as a springboard to develop healthier habits, eat the salads that you hate.
Salads I hate. Yeah. I'll eat the deconstructed.
Yeah.
Cucumbers, peppers.
Yeah, and my girlfriend eats some food that, like, you just can't imagine. I mean, it's stuff that I I would have never.
Right.
In fact, I would have suggested other people not eat. But it's
Wait, I'm so curious. What is one example?
So tofu.
Oh, I've never been able to do it. I'm sure it's
Best
delicious.
if it's fried and you dip it in things.
So-
That's the gateway drug to tofu.
Yeah. So she made this dish for us the other night. It had kale. It had quinoa. That's how she pronounced it. She doesn't know it's actually pronounced quinoa.
It's totally quinoa.
Yeah. It had sweet potatoes. It had chicken,
Yum.
and not fried chicken.
Rude.
But it was delicious.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah.
The audacity.
Yeah. And so it's about continuing to change, and it's about adopting new patterns and new lifestyles because
Yeah.
I used to tell people that, when I was 550 pounds, I mean, nobody's that hungry. I didn't eat because
You were hungry.
I was hungry. And as I started losing weight, I actually felt hunger for the first time.
What was that like?
I was hungry.
It's really a very disturbing sensation when you realize what it really is.
Yeah, there's a lot of disturbing sensations. Like I was in bed one day and I couldn't get comfortable. I'm laying on my side and I'm just like, what is going on with this friggin' mattress? And I put my hand under. It was my ribs.
Wow.
My ribs. I hadn't felt them in
Interesting.
years and years.
Wow.
And so, and you kind of think about that, and yeah, that's kind of funny, but it's just kind of a testament to how far gone I was.
Yeah.
I've lost 322 pounds now. And
Not
It's-
without effort and not without sacrifice. And you've also, I assume, I'm making an assumption that you've had to have the skin surgery.
yeah, so I've had 4 surgeries total. I had 2 for the weight loss, and then I've had 2 of 3 skin surgeries.
Right.
So I've had the whatever the abdominal one is, and then I had a double brachioplasty, and then I'm thinking about getting a leg taken off.
Aaron can do that, actually.
No.
Because
No.
Yeah.
No.
You have to go through Craigslist. But.
yeah, because a leg's got to weigh what, 30, 40 pounds?
A
you
leg
go.
weighs a lot more than that.
Yeah.
The skin probably does.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I'm going to have another skin surgery, and it's just, like I said, I've never been focused on skinny because I don't think it's an option for me, but
Yeah.
definitely healthy.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem is that I'm 49. And so before pre-internet, I survived pre-internet high school and everything, but there were magazines, there was MTV, there was the TV shows and movies and things like that. The standard American beauty is skinny, really skinny, cachectically skinny, but then managing to have all of the attributes of someone who is not. So you have to have hips for a woman, you have to have muscles for a guy, you have to have breasts, you have to have all of the things that if you really truly are truly that skinny, you can't also have unless there's reverse surgeries, there's adding things in.
Yeah.
Unless you're genetically, and I think blessed is a mistake. Like you got what the American vision of beauty is. Otherwise, the rest, the 99.9% of the humanity, are different body shapes.
Yeah.
And we're doing better. There's better representation now. You can go into Target and Old Navy have normal sized models and mannequins and things for girls, which I think is so helpful. But still, I have 2 teenage daughters.
Yeah.
I have one who is incredibly strong, who, lucky for me, doesn't really care. She plays volleyball. She's healthy. She's very healthy. I have another one who is very, very thin naturally. She looks like everyone else in my husband's family. They're very naturally thin people. And we do a really good job of never pointing out anything about weight to either of them.
Yeah.
Good.
Right? Because it's not important. It's about being healthy. It's about being strong.
Right.
My daughter who plays volleyball the other day, and she'll never watch this. I walked past her and I bumped into her, and it's like bumping into a wall. Like it's an immobile object. I'm like, you are just so strong.
We love that positivity. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's that thing where you just want to like squish babies. Like I always want to grab her, like, and we were at the beach last week and watching my other daughter go for a walk and just watch her just stand up tall and proud of herself. Is at almost 16, just walk down the beach, not swathed in, clothing and not trying to hide anything. I thought, okay, that is what we need to, that's our goal. That's the goal right there.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many aspects of why our culture is against us. It's a little bit like we live in PCOS.
Yeah.
Everything is geared towards an unhealthy lifestyle because we have evolved to make everything easier without our bodies evolving to allow us to do that. And that's been that's one of my spiels. That's sort of one of my talks when I have this conversation with people who come in. By the time someone in one of my visits brings up their weight, and it's a delicate conversation, it's hard on this end because you don't want to be like, so.
Because they've heard it.
They've already heard it, right? And so how do you broach the subject? Did you have anyone who broached the conversation with you in a way that made you feel safe? Like, is there advice from the patient side of things on how to have that conversation? Or how to bring it up the opposite way? Did you feel like you finally could say something to someone and they heard? Because obviously they were working on the weight loss surgery for you.
Yeah. That was the first doctor. She was the first doctor who I felt comfortable with. Okay. Every doctor that I had seen, regardless of what it was for, if I went in for a sore throat, if I went in for anything,
right.
One of the questions I was always asked was, do you have diabetes? Because I was huge.
Right.
I never did, fortunately. But yeah, I mean, it was a subject that everybody brought up, and no one did it in a helpful way.
I want to pause to put a pin in that for just 2 seconds. I do want to point out something very important about what you just said. Just because someone is of a higher BMI, which is the body mass index, which is an outdated, stupid way to measure health that we still utilize, just because you are heavier does not necessarily mean that you have diabetes or hypertension or high cholesterol or liver disease. There are people at what modern Western medicine would consider obese who don't yet have, other than a metabolic challenge, don't have any sequelae from it. And I think that that's when we're looking at people on that curve of what's normal. When we look at somebody who doesn't meet the American standard, we think of them as unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right? But there are plenty of people who can do athletics and yoga. Look at some of the people who shot put, and they are not fitting the American standard of beauty. Rugby players in general do not, on either gender, fit the American standard of beauty. They are still very, very healthy people. So I just wanted to make sure that we have that, that's Erin's, subtitures.
Yeah, I was always fortunate enough to have very low cholesterol. My heart was healthy. In fact, the doctor that was working with me for my surgery said, other than being like morbidly obese, you're pretty healthy. Yeah, so it's weird to have the conversation where you're so far beyond what anybody would ever consider healthy, but to still like you were saying on the inside,
everything's fine.
Be healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I talked about it with anybody and everybody, but it always went the same way.
Diet, exercise.
Yeah. All you have to do is just move more and eat less.
Right. Which I think is my favorite thing that I've said to people. I have. And then I think I had an epiphany maybe a couple years ago where I realized that that's essentially when a parent tells you maybe. Like it means no. Like it doesn't work. And so I think it doesn't work. It gives you no tools. And I feel like I've watched patients, and I myself have tried everything from keto to low carb to Mediterranean to all, I think things like that. I think like the Mediterranean diet's an ideal diet to live on when you're healthy, when you're of a healthy weight. I think, or when you're trying to eat healthy. I think the Mediterranean diet is a wonderful, best healthy diet I still don't think it helps somebody who is obese. I still don't think it helps
Yeah.
by itself somebody who is metabolically sabotaged by their body with PCOS. I don't think it's enough. And I think telling people that by themselves maybe just sets them up for failure. If it was willpower alone, no one would be overweight. If it was willpower alone, no one would ever drink to excess. If it was willpower alone, our whole society would be different. But that's not it, because it's not willpower alone. It's impossible when you're in the pit to think willpower. I think, like, right?
Yeah, and it's just such a simplistic, ridiculous thing to say to somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
For such a complex,
Yeah.
obesity is a disease. It is a disease. We all agree it's a disease, except for the people trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Well, because what's cheaper, 10 chicken nuggets or, fresh produce?
Yes,
and we've
how
done that.
frustrating is that?
Yeah,
But that doesn't make it into the patient room,
And
right?
who eats
That
just 10?
conversation. The
Right, and
conversation
exactly.
is always, have you tried exercising?
Right,
And
right.
it just makes you want
Have
to
you-
just slap somebody.
Right. It's going to be 100 degrees this week every day. Right.
Yeah.
This is right now I was walking into the building. This is the nicest it's going to be this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So telling someone I need you to go out and exercise. Well, if they're working 2 jobs,
not real.
if they've got kids to take care of, when exactly do you want me to exercise?
Yeah.
And you know what exercise also does? It makes you hungry.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the other side effect.
And
of
telling people that is just more mental stress for them. Like when you asked earlier, like what is something that you could hear back, like what if that conversation turned into like, are you in therapy?
Yeah.
Like have you been able to find, I saw you just moved here. Have you been able to find like local therapists to where you can kind of talk to this side
How's your
of
sleep?
what you're going through? Yeah. Like that just feels so much more caring, because when I say, I got sober this year and like all these things, like I did that because I'm in weekly therapy.
Right.
Like I didn't just like wake up one morning and be like, that's all done. I'm just gonna fix everything. I'm bored with that. Right? Like you
that
have
would be
to,
lovely, but that's not how that works.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really not. It's
No.
really not. And then when you have things like preservatives and the things when you were mentioning, like, I was never that hungry, but at the same time, when you're eating things like, in America, our food is garbage. I had a friend tell me the other day, maybe it was you, somebody went to Italy that has like Crohn's or something.
Yes.
And she can go over there and eat pasta and all those things because
Bread
it's
and-
really the trash that we put in things here, right? So when a doctor looks at you and says, have you tried diet or exercise? It's this new thing I just thought of. It just makes you go, what about all these other things?
Right.
And that is not an experience I've had here. You can blame Atlanta for that. Erin Baird is an absolute angel. And I will say another
she
thing that
glowing?
you did for me that I will never forget is the first time that I went to you. You pulled it up on this big screen and you actually walked me through while looking at my own self, like my ovaries, how this worked, and like got a pointer, and she was like, and this won't do this. And I never understood
That is
PCOS.
amazing.
I knew it was a thing that limited my ability to get healthy or feel good about myself in aesthetic ways. I knew all, that it was, I definitely knew about the pain it brought and all the other things that it brings. But you sat there with me and I just like went home and I was just like, I have never understood my body in this way. And that was a huge help.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I love that. And
You're
that's a
welcome.
perfect example of what it is supposed to look like.
I think I think a lot of it in healthcare is listening, but also understanding culture. You can't tell people who live in a culture like my husband's family is Asian, and so me saying, I need you to cut back on your carb intake, like I need you to eat less rice, is going to be culturally inappropriate. Like my family eats rice with every meal. Breakfast is dinner before with rice and an egg on it. I mean, that's Filipino breakfast.
That sounds.
That's
what we ate. I mean, literally.
Way better than the tofu.
Yeah, and I'm hungry.
Might be
I'm
tofu.
hungry. Getting more and more hungry.
And so, but I think it's important to understand culturally, we are sabotaged as a culture. So if you're looking to get healthy, the first thing I would say, if we want to go into like actionable items, the first thing to do is to sit down and take what is it that drives you, in the sense of, when I'm not sleeping well because I don't prioritize sleep because I doom scroll, maybe the reason you have empty calories the next day and is because you have anxiety, therefore you're not sleeping, therefore you're eating calories to keep you up the next day, and therefore you're depressed because you're also not living where you want to be, so now you're eating to give yourself a dopamine release for food. So yes, I think that therapy, I think that taking stock of the things, not once in there did I say don't eat McDonald's for breakfast. I didn't say that.
God.
Right. I didn't say that because I also think it's a little bit about coping. And so for me, I think it's about looking at the situation as a whole, but it also has to be when someone's ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and since my experience is just completely weight loss, the first time I had ever heard this was when I sat down with my initial consultation with the surgeon who did my weight loss surgery. He said, bodies have an internal, kind of a temperature, not heat temperature, but
an engine running,
where they like things.
Yeah.
And he said, there's no amount of diet and exercise that's going to fix you unless I lock you in a cage.
Right.
And control what you eat because your body is going to fight you and it's going to be a battle that you can't win. And I didn't think to myself, great, I'm off the hook. I'm not some fat slob that just likes to eat 7 pizzas a day, which I never did.
And nobody is that.
Yeah, but
But that's the internal voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's an external voice. But he had given me a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
And he even, I remember having a 1-year post-op check with him, and he said, I want you to look at something. And I didn't know this, but one of the nurses in our initial couple consultations took a picture of my face while we were talking. And he pulled it up and he said, look how angry you look. Look how hopeless you look. Look how,
Yeah.
And then I see a completely different person in front of me now. And I just thought, my God, if that's how I look on the outside, no wonder I feel like I feel on the inside.
Right.
And I hated myself, and unfortunately, fat brain is a thing.
No, it's very much so a thing.
I still sometimes, I'll go out to eat with my girlfriend, and sometimes I'll walk into a restaurant and I'll start scanning tables because I know there are tables I'm not going to fit in. But that's not true anymore.
Right.
I look at the menu for something that's going to be enough food.
Right.
Not remembering that I can't even get through 10 nuggets.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like there are still some thought patterns and things that I, now 12 years later, haven't gotten a hold of yet.
Those are hardwired in, though. Those are years and years and years. It's no different than when I have, because I've lost about 50 pounds.
Give me some right now.
And I think that I had tried everything, and it's okay to share, I guess. We're all sharing. This is what we do. We share. And I've done it through injectable. I've done it through Wegovy. And I think that people, when I would have to go out to dinner for business, I would have pre-dinner anxiety. I didn't want to eat too much. I didn't want to look like I was hungry all the time because the message sending for me is just not on. Like there's no full, there's no full, there's no satiated, there's no comfortable, there's no nothing. Like there was nothing there. There's no off switch.
Yeah.
And so I had managed through every possible dieting probably on the planet. And also probably that my temperature, my internal temperature kind of would get to a spot and stay there for a while. And then it'd be like, well, okay, we can move over here and up moving, up regulation. And I also had a weight loss physician, tell me that, first of all, he was really kind. And he said, on the bell curve, you're fine. Now, this was 30 pounds lighter than I was when I went on the medication. I was still, on the bell curve, you're fine. You're not unhealthy. You'll live just as long as you should, blah, blah, blah. but I didn't feel fine then. And then 30 pounds later, COVID, life, raising children, work. Not that Centra is a bad place to work for. I'm just work. Just got worse and worse. But I had tried everything. And now even today, where I know that even if I go out to a really nice restaurant and there's going to be great food, I'm going to get full. But I scan the menu to look for things that I can eat and things I can't eat, that can't eats. And I think that, I just went to the beach for a week and I brought a bunch of different swimsuits because, swimsuits. The devil.
That's a separate podcast.
That's a separate podcast.
We do not have time for that.
We do not.
I just don't wear anything.
I mean, that solves the problem.
Yeah, and after a while, you're not allowed on any beaches anyway, so the problem's solved.
Yes, this is a good idea. I'll try that next time. But you know what I did? I slapped on a two-piece because it's 1,000 degrees and I wanted to be comfortable, and I was like, you know what? I'll do it. And so, and I was comfortable, but I wasn't initially, and I think that's also a holdover. And I still did the walk by the reflection in the glass and do the, and your brain still makes you the size you were.
Yeah.
But the thing that's really kicked after this week of vacation is that, and I think I was thinking about this on the way over here, is that now I had to run along the beach because I had to go get something, and I ran like 50 feet, which is the longest I've run in a very long time. And it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I was winded because I need to work on my cardiovascular health, but asking someone who's obese or who's overweight to exercise on joints and muscles and bones and feet and things that hurt when you just walk up to the kitchen is a different story. I feel like now I'm in a place where exercise is something I could consider.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much if you joined us for part 1 of our series that we're doing, Healthy Over Skinny. We're going to dig in on part 2. I have got my same crazy crew here, and so we're just going to dig in.